question about the lymphatic system and like, and all the detoxing. I mean, I guess with everything that we're doing, like I'm doing the infrared sauna and then the rife and then the food and the juicing and enemas. So a lot of detoxing. So I get bouts of fatigue, you know, overall I feel good, and then I'll get bouts of fatigue. And then when I was at my functional doctor on the bioresonance machine, it showed my lymphatic was sluggish. I jump on the trampoline. So my question is, can the detox, of course, make us fatigued? And can it slug up the lymphatic system?
Good question. All right. So what is detoxification? So detoxification is getting bad things out of your body that we don't want in our body, right? So where are these bad things that we're trying to get out of the body? So everyday detox is what's taking place. So let's take a step back. In a perfect world, you're exposed to different toxins. So even 300 years ago, you're exposed to toxins. Maybe not the same ones that we are exposed to now. There was no Monsanto. There was no fertilizer. There were no chemicals sprayed on fields. But there was coal burned for heat all the time. So there was a lot of byproducts of coal in the air. You look at old pictures of cities and they're black, and the city, the bricks of the building were black and such because coal was burned everywhere. There were other toxins that they were exposed to, not maybe so many harmful chemicals, but there was exposure to a lot of different toxins. That being said, it is imperative that your body is detoxifying. So if you breathe that coal dust in, it went into your bloodstream, and into your bloodstream, then it went through the liver, and it went through that phase 1, phase 2, phase 2.5, dumped into the bile duct, dumped into the small intestine, dumped into the toilet. And as long as those pathways were ample enough to deal with the amount of toxic exposure, I never became toxic, because you aren't what you eat, you aren't what you absorb, you are what you don't get rid of. So as long as I was on a daily or weekly basis getting rid of all the things that I was exposed to, then those things never stayed in my system, and I never became quote unquote toxic. That is why there were less amounts of cancer back 300 years ago. And if you took out the factor of birth, deaths at birth, and deaths at early age, or deaths, below the age of 6, people were living just as long 300 years ago as they are now. So don't buy the excuse that we're getting more cancer because people are living longer, because that's not true. So if you're getting rid of everything that you're exposed to on a weekly basis, then you're not toxic. Well, what do you mean? How would I be toxic? Well, if I'm not getting rid of everything that I'm exposed to on a weekly basis, these toxins circulate through the blood, and I will either die, or my body will shunt these toxins to my cells. And that's what happens. So toxins are not getting through the pathways because we're exposed to an overabundance of them, or the pathways aren't working correctly. So the toxins are shunted to a cell, and then those cells store toxins, heavy metals, poisons, chemicals, etc., etc., etc. So all these chemicals that we're exposed to are settled in the cells. That's how cancer starts. So 99% of the time, they don't cause cancer. And I could live to 120 years old and die, and then have somebody cut open a slice of my body, smear a cell slice onto a slide, and look at it under a microscope, an electron microscope, and say, wow, look at all these hydrocarbons. Look at that benzene that's in that cell. Look at the mercury. Look at the lead. Oh my gosh, this guy was full of toxins. But as long as it didn't interrupt any of the metabolic pathways, it didn't cause disease. Problem is, it interrupts the metabolic pathways a lot. And if it interrupts the metabolic pathway in the nucleus of the cell that is essential for cell replication, that's what's called cancer. So if mercury in my cell interrupts my cell replication cycle, it's caused cancer. So we need to detox. Well, how do we detox? Well, we have to improve phase 1, phase 2, phase 2.5, phase 3 detoxification pathways, and we do things like everything that I have you guys doing that will also help my cells push stuff back into the blood so it can detox. Now, my cells aren't always going to push things back into the blood. They're going to push things outside of the cell membrane. So remember, cells are this little round thing that has a membrane around it, and when we're getting rid of the toxins in that cell, it pushes it outside of that cell, outside through the cell membrane, into this space called the extracellular space. That's the space between the cells. The extracellular space is a fluid matrix with proteins and a bunch of junk that the cells just gave off because they're trying to clean themselves out. And then that extracellular space is drained by a open-ended capillary system called your lymph system, which you can think of as a storm sewer. So your cells are like houses that are throwing the garbage out into the street, and now the garbage has to be cleaned up and taken away. Otherwise, we just have a whole bunch of garbage sitting in our street, aka the extracellular spaces, and that doesn't make us feel good. So we could get a sick feeling, tired, sluggish, not feeling well, because we are detoxing very well the cells, but we're dumping it in the extracellular space. And if we have an overabundance that our lymphatics aren't draining well, then we could have sluggish feeling then. We could also have sluggish feeling if our lymphatics are working, but it's getting back to the liver, and phase 1, phase 2, phase 2.5 isn't working well, and we've talked about that a lot. That's why we use things like milk thistle and NRF2 accelerator and keep 1 accelerator and PON1 assist and detox accelerator and phosphatidylcholine and some bitters and binders. And that's why we're doing all that stuff. So you got to look down the line. Is it a problem with the liver cell itself? Is it a problem with the liver getting it into the bile? Let's look a little farther back. Is it a problem with the lymphatic system being able to pick it up? Is it a problem with the toxins are getting into the lymphatic system, but it's not getting back to the blood? Well, how does the lymphatic system work? Well, the lymphatic system works by contraction of the muscle. So if all we're doing is sitting around on the couch, eating healthy bonbons, we're still not going to detox very well because we're not getting lymphatic drainage and lymphatic movement. But you said I'm doing the sauna, I'm doing the chi machine, I'm doing skin brushing, I'm doing exercising, I'm contracting muscles, but I'm feeling sluggish. You could be doing everything right, and the symptoms that you might be getting are because you're really doing a good job of cellular detoxification, and you're kind of overwhelming the liver, but you're doing everything right, and this too shall pass. And you kind of got to go through that a little bit too. So you might think about a couple things. Well, I've been doing this for a couple months and I'm still getting sluggish. You could slow down on some of those things and just take it easy. And maybe you're going too fast and overwhelming your liver. It's not that we need to support the liver anymore. We're just going too fast and overwhelming, and see if that makes a difference. But you got to look back at all the pathways and go, where am I maybe overdoing it? Where do I need some support? Maybe I don't need any support. I just need to drink some more water and cool off for a little bit. Try some of those things.
Okay, thank you. That's very good.